Rain hammered against the windshield hard enough to blur the city lights into streaks of white and gold. Ethan Cole sat in the parking lot outside Mercy General Hospital, gripping his steering wheel so tightly his knuckles looked carved from bone. His phone buzzed again. Ashley. 3 unread messages. He already knew what they said before opening them. Where are you? Mom is asking. Don't embarrass Emmy tonight. Ethan leaned back against the seat and closed his eyes. 10 years. 10 years of marriage reduced to demands sent through glowing bubbles on a cracked iPhone screen. The emergency room doors slid open across the lot. Nurses rushed a man inside on a stretcher while his wife ran beside him crying uncontrollably. Ethan watched her hold the man's hand like losing him would destroy her entire existence. He barely remembered what that kind of love felt like anymore. His phone buzzed again. Ashley, if you're trying to punish me, grow up. Ethan laughed softly to himself, not because anything was funny, because sometimes pain became so constant your body forgot how else to react. He typed back only 3 words. I'm on my way. Then he started the engine. Tonight was his father-in-law Richard Bennett's retirement gala. Big venue downtown, politicians, business executives, lawyers, doctors, the entire Bennett family orbiting around Richard like he was royalty. And Ethan. Ethan was the accessory husband. The quiet one. The reliable one. The man everyone called solid when what they really meant was boring. He drove through downtown Chicago while rain flooded the streets in silver rivers. Luxury buildings towered over him like monuments to people who mattered more. Ashley used to squeeze his hand during drives like this. Back when they were broke. Back when they lived in a tiny apartment with stained carpets and ate instant ramen on the floor because they couldn't afford furniture. Back when Ashley looked at him like he was enough. Now she looked at him like he was unfinished work. The valet opened Ethan's door beneath the glowing entrance canopy of the Grand Monarch Hotel. Inside, chandeliers lit the ballroom in warm gold, crystal glasses clinked, expensive laughter echoed across marble floors. Ashley stood near the center of the room wearing a black satin dress that probably cost more than Ethan's first car. She looked stunning. She always did. And somehow that made everything hurt worse. The second she saw him, her smile disappeared. You're 40 minutes late, she hissed as he approached. Traffic. You could have at least changed your tie. Ethan looked down at his navy tie. It's clean. Ashley exhaled sharply through her nose. That's not the point. He nodded slowly. Of course it was. Nothing was ever the point anymore. Richard Bennett spotted Ethan and immediately raised a whiskey glass. There he is, Richard boomed loudly enough for nearby guests to turn, the hardest working mule in Illinois. Several men laughed. Ethan forced a smile. Richard slapped his shoulder hard. You still at that little engineering firm? Yeah. Jesus Christ, Richard chuckled. Ashley was always the ambitious one. Ashley didn't defend him. She never defended him anymore. One of Richard's golf buddies leaned closer. You two planning kids anytime soon? Silence. Ashley reached for champagne. Ethan swallowed carefully. We'll see, Ashley answered coldly. The man laughed awkwardly and walked away. Richard muttered under his breath, clocks ticking. Ethan heard it. Ashley definitely heard it. Neither responded. Because this conversation had already happened 1,000 times behind closed doors. Children. Fertility clinics. Test results. Hormone injections. Specialists. Debt. Hope. Failure. And eventually blame. Always blame. Ashley stepped closer to Ethan once Richard moved away. You couldn't pretend to be happy for one night. I am pretending. Not well enough. Ethan stared at her. You stopped looking at me like your husband a long time ago. Ashley crossed her arms instantly, defensive, sharp. Don't do this here. Where should we do it? We don't talk at home. You shut down every time I try. No, Ethan said quietly. I just stopped begging. Her jaw tightened. That hit somewhere real. For a brief second, Ethan saw the old Ashley beneath the polished exterior, the exhausted woman buried underneath years of resentment. Then her walls returned. Dad's big night isn't about you. There it is. What? That thing you do. Ashley looked annoyed. What thing? Making me feel guilty for existing. She stared at him for several seconds before laughing once under her breath. You know what your problem is. Ethan almost smiled. Only one. You want credit for bare minimum effort. That landed harder than she intended. Because Ethan had spent years giving everything he had left. Double shifts. Canceled vacations. Selling his motorcycle to cover IVF treatments. Skipping meals when bills stacked too high. Working himself into chronic migraines. Holding Ashley while she cried after miscarriages. Listening when she screamed at him because grief needed somewhere to go. He absorbed all of it. Silently. Like men are taught to do. Ashley continued speaking, unaware she'd already cracked something open inside him. You think because you're loyal and dependable that's enough. Ethan looked at her carefully. It used to be. Something flickered across her face. Regret, maybe. But then her phone buzzed. She checked it immediately. Smiled. Not at Ethan. At her screen. And suddenly he knew. Not with proof. Not logically. But in the deep animal place, inside a man that recognizes when he's already been replaced emotionally. Ashley noticed his expression. What? Who's texting? Seriously. Just asking. It's work. At 9:30 on a Saturday night. She rolled her eyes. God, you're exhausting. There it was again. Exhausting. That word. The final stage of modern love. Not hatred. Not rage. Fatigue. Like loving someone became an inconvenience. Ashley walked off toward another group before Ethan could answer. And just like that, he stood alone in a ballroom filled with hundreds of people. Invisible. A waiter passed carrying champagne. Ethan grabbed one. Then another. Across the room, he watched Ashley laugh beside a tall man in a charcoal suit. Mid-30s, perfect haircut, confident posture, expensive watch. The man touched Ashley's lower back while speaking. Small gesture. Intimate. Familiar. Ashley didn't move away. Ethan's stomach twisted. Richard suddenly appeared beside him again, smelling like bourbon and arrogance. You know, Richard said, Ashley had bigger options than you once upon a time. Ethan stayed silent. But she chose you, Richard smirked. Don't make her regret it. The old Ethan would have swallowed that insult. Tonight something felt different. Maybe because exhaustion finally outweighed fear. He looked Richard directly in the eye. I think she already does. Richard blinked, surprised. Before he could respond, Ethan walked away. The rain had intensified outside. Lightning flashed across the skyline as Ethan stepped onto the hotel balcony alone. Cold air hit his face. He breathed deeply. Inside, muffled jazz music floated through glass walls, while wealthy people celebrated meaningless achievements. Ethan checked his bank app automatically. Habit. $312 until next payday. Mortgage due in 6 days. Ashley's car payment in 4. Another fertility clinic bill pending. He laughed bitterly. He had become a machine that converted stress into survival. Nothing more. The balcony door opened behind him. Ashley stepped outside. You disappeared. I needed air. She folded her arms against the cold. Dad thinks you're upset. Your dad thinks I'm a disappointment. Well, she shrugged slightly. That shrug, that tiny movement destroyed something. Because it confirmed she agreed. Ethan stared out at the rain. When did you stop loving me? Ashley froze. For once, she didn't have a quick response. Finally, she answered quietly, I don't know. Honest. Brutally honest. And somehow that hurt worse than lies. Ethan nodded slowly. I think I remember the exact moment. Ashley looked at him. It was after the second miscarriage. Her face hardened immediately. Don't. You blamed me. I was grieving. I know, so was I. You have no idea what that did to my body. You're right, Ethan whispered, but you have no idea what it did to my soul. Ashley looked away. Rain pounded the balcony railing between them. I needed you, she said softly. I was there. Physically. Ethan inhaled slowly. There it was. The truth. Nothing he gave counted, because it wasn't given the exact way she needed. And what did you need from me? He asked. Ashley opened her mouth. Then closed it. Because maybe she didn't know anymore either. Finally she said, you stopped fighting for us. Ethan almost laughed again. No, Ashley, I just got tired of fighting alone. Silence swallowed them whole. Then her phone buzzed again. That same tiny smile returned when she checked it. Ethan saw it clearly this time. And she noticed him seeing it. Her expression changed instantly. Defensive. Guilty. Who is he? Ashley's eyes widened slightly. There's no one. Don't insult me. You're being paranoid. Am I? Yes. But she answered too fast. Ethan nodded slowly. The puzzle pieces locked together inside him with terrifying clarity. Late meetings. Password changes. Coldness. Constant criticism. Emotional distance. The sudden obsession with finding herself. Classic. Painfully classic. Ethan looked down at his wedding ring. 10 years. Reduced to suspicion on a rainy balcony. Ashley stepped closer, lowering her voice. You know what? This is exactly why I can't talk to you anymore. Because I notice things. Because everything becomes emotional warfare. Ethan stared at her. You're texting another man while standing beside your husband. Her eyes flashed with anger. You don't own me. I never said I did. Well, maybe stop acting like my body is some resource that belongs to you. The words hung in the storm air like shattered glass. Ethan felt physically hit by them. Because suddenly he understood. Not just tonight. Everything. The distance. The contempt. The way she flinched from his touch lately. Ashley didn't see him as a partner anymore. She saw him as a burden demanding emotional labor. Demanding affection. Demanding intimacy. Demanding pieces of her she no longer wanted to give. And maybe she'd already given them somewhere else. Ashley realized how harsh the sentence sounded a second too late. Ethan. But he stepped back. No, he said quietly, it's okay. It came out wrong. No, I think it came out honest. Lightning illuminated the city skyline behind him. For the first time in years, Ethan felt strangely calm. Not happy. Not angry. Just empty enough to see clearly. He removed his wedding ring slowly. Ashley's eyes widened. What are you doing? He looked at the ring resting in his palm. Tiny piece of gold. 10 years of sacrifice condensed into metal. Then he slipped it into her hand. Ashley stared down at it in shock. You're being dramatic. Maybe. Ethan. But I think we both know this marriage died a while ago. Her breathing changed slightly. Fear now. Because people only push so far when they believe the other person will never leave. You don't mean that. Ethan looked directly into her eyes. And for the first time in years, he stopped trying to protect her feelings from reality. I think you stopped being my wife long before tonight. Ashley's face hardened again instantly. Defense mechanism. If you walk away right now, don't expect me to beg. Ethan nodded once. I know. Then he walked back into the ballroom. Past the chandeliers. Past the laughter. Past Richard Bennett bragging to investors. Past the man in the charcoal suit, watching Ashley through the balcony glass. Ethan grabbed his coat from the attendant desk. Behind him, Ashley finally rushed inside. Ethan, wait. He stopped. Not because he wanted to. Because some small broken part of him still hoped. Ashley approached carefully. People nearby pretended not to stare. You're seriously leaving? Yes. Over one argument. Ethan looked at her for several long seconds. No, he said softly, over 10 years of them. Her eyes watered instantly. But he noticed something important. She still wasn't apologizing. Only reacting to consequences. That realization sealed everything. Ashley lowered her voice. So what now? Ethan thought about that. The truth was terrifying. He had built his entire adult identity around surviving this marriage. Without it, who was he? I don't know, he admitted. Ashley crossed her arms again, armor returning. You're making a mistake. Maybe. You'll regret this. Ethan gave a tired smile. I already regret staying this long. That one hurt her. He saw it land. Good. For once she could carry something too. Ethan turned and walked toward the exit. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. But something made him answer. Hello. A woman's voice spoke urgently. Is this Ethan Cole? Yes. This is Mercy General Hospital. Your mother collapsed 20 minutes ago. The world stopped moving. What? She's stable right now, but you need to come immediately. Ethan's blood turned cold. I'm coming. He hung up instantly. Ashley's face changed. What happened? My mom. Fear erased every other emotion inside him. She collapsed. Ashley stepped forward automatically. Oh my God, I'll come with you. Ethan looked at her. Really looked at her. And suddenly, he felt the full unbearable weight of everything. The betrayal. The exhaustion. The years. The loneliness. His mother might be dying. And the one person who was supposed to feel like home now felt like a stranger wearing familiar skin. Ethan shook his head slowly. No. Ashley looked stunned. What? I need someone beside me who actually loves me tonight. Her face crumpled. But Ethan turned and walked out into the storm before she could answer. Rain drenched him instantly. Thunder exploded overhead as he crossed the parking circle alone. Inside the hotel lobby, Ashley stood frozen beneath golden chandeliers holding a wedding ring in her trembling hand. And for the first time in her life, she looked afraid Ethan might never come back. ID equals Part 2. The windshield wipers moved furiously back and forth, barely keeping up with the storm. Ethan gripped the steering wheel so tightly his palms hurt. Every red light felt personal. Every slow driver felt unbearable. His mother was alone in a hospital bed, while his entire marriage collapsed in the same night. The universe had incredible timing. His phone rang 3 times during the drive. Ashley. 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 He ignored every call. Rain flooded downtown Chicago while ambulance sirens echoed somewhere in the distance. Ethan's chest felt tight enough to crack. His mother was all he had left. That thought hit him harder than expected. Because it was true. His father died when Ethan was 23, heart attack during a double shift at the steel plant, 1 second alive, next second gone. After that, it had just been Ethan and his mother against the world. Linda Cole. The woman who worked 2 nursing jobs while raising him. The woman who skipped meals so Ethan could eat. The woman who never once complained. And somehow he'd spent the last 10 years slowly disappearing into a marriage that made him feel smaller every day while barely visiting the one person who had actually loved him unconditionally. Guilt crawled through him like acid. By the time he reached Mercy General, his shirt clung to his body from rain and sweat. He sprinted through the emergency entrance. Linda Cole, he said breathlessly to the receptionist, my mother. The woman checked her screen. 3rd floor, cardiac observation. Ethan didn't wait for elevators. He took the stairs 2 at a time. By the time he reached the 3rd floor, his lungs burned. Room 314. The door stood slightly open. Ethan slowed as he approached. Machines beeped softly inside. And there she was. His mother looked impossibly small in the hospital bed. Gray curls against white pillows. Oxygen tube beneath her nose. Heart monitor blinking steadily beside her. Ethan's chest tightened painfully. Mom. Linda opened her eyes slowly. The second she saw him, she smiled weakly. There's my handsome boy. That almost broke him. He moved beside the bed immediately and took her hand. What happened? Oh, apparently my heart enjoys drama now. She gave a tiny shrug. Probably inherited that from you. Even now, she was trying to make him feel better. Ethan swallowed hard. Don't joke. Linda studied his face carefully. Moo, she whispered, something else happened tonight. Mothers always know. Even exhausted and hooked to monitors, she knew. Ethan looked down. I don't want to talk about it. That serious? He nodded once. Linda squeezed his hand gently. You finally stopped pretending. Ethan blinked. What? His mother gave him a tired look. Ethan, I may be old, but I'm not blind. A nurse entered briefly to check monitors before leaving again. The room fell quiet except for rain tapping the windows. Linda looked toward the ceiling for a moment. You know what your father's problem was. Ethan sat carefully beside her bed. He thought love meant endurance. That sentence hit immediately. Linda continued softly. Man worked himself into the grave, trying to carry everyone else's pain. Ethan stared down at their joined hands. That sounds familiar. Yes, Linda whispered sadly. That's why I'm telling you before it's too late. Tears burned unexpectedly behind Ethan's eyes. He looked away quickly. I failed, Mom. No. Yes. Marriage ending isn't failure. It is when you gave everything. Linda watched him carefully. Did Ashley? Silence. That answered enough. Linda exhaled slowly. I liked that girl once. Once. She stopped looking at you with kindness years ago. The honesty stunned him. His mother rarely criticized anyone. Ethan rubbed his face tiredly. I kept thinking if I worked harder, if I fixed enough things, if I stayed patient, she'd love you the way you deserved. He nodded. Linda's eyes softened painfully. Oh, sweetheart. That word. Sweetheart. No one had called him that in years. Not with warmth. Not without expectation attached. His phone buzzed again on the chair beside him. Ashley. This time a voicemail followed. Then another. Then another. Linda glanced at the screen. You should probably answer eventually. I can't right now. You still love her. Ethan closed his eyes. Unfortunately. Linda was quiet for several moments. Love is dangerous when mixed with low self-worth. He looked at her sharply. What does that mean? It means people like you stay too long. The sentence settled deep inside him. Because she was right. Ethan had spent years accepting emotional starvation because part of him believed that was all he deserved. Ashley was beautiful, intelligent, successful, ambitious. And Ethan? He was dependable. The human equivalent of beige wallpaper. Useful but forgettable. That belief had infected everything. Even his silence. Especially his silence. A soft knock interrupted them. Ethan turned. Ashley stood in the doorway. Her makeup had smudged slightly from rain. Her black satin dress was hidden beneath Ethan's oversized coat she must have grabbed from the car. For a second, nobody spoke. Linda's eyes moved carefully between them. Ashley stepped inside quietly. I came as fast as I could. Ethan stood immediately. You didn't need to. Ashley flinched. Linda noticed. Mothers notice everything. Ashley approached the bed slowly and offered a small smile. Hi, Linda. Linda returned the smile politely, but without warmth. Ashley. Tension filled the room instantly. Ashley looked toward Ethan. You left your phone off. I know. I was worried. Ethan almost laughed at the irony. Now she was worried. Now. Ashley shifted awkwardly. I called the hospital downstairs. They told me your room number. Linda glanced subtly at Ethan. He understood immediately. His mother was evaluating her. Not cruelly. Honestly. Ashley moved closer. How are you feeling? Old, Linda replied calmly. Ashley gave a nervous smile. I'm glad you're okay. Linda nodded slowly. Then very gently, she asked. Are you? Ashley froze. Ethan looked down instantly. Because his mother had always possessed terrifying emotional precision. Ashley swallowed. Tonight got complicated. Linda tilted her head slightly. Marriages usually become complicated long before nights like this. Ashley's eyes flickered toward Ethan again. He could see panic building beneath her composed exterior. Good. Maybe she was finally feeling what he'd carried for years. Ashley stepped toward him quietly. Can we talk outside? Ethan didn't move. Not tonight. Please. No. Ashley's jaw tightened. You can't ignore me forever. I'm trying to focus on my mother. And I'm your wife. The room became still. Linda looked at Ethan. Then at Ashley. Then back at Ethan. And softly, carefully, she asked the question nobody else would dare ask. Are you? Ashley looked stunned. Excuse me. Linda's voice remained calm. A wife protects her husband's heart too. Ashley's face flushed immediately. You don't know what's been happening between us. No, Linda admitted, but I know my son. Silence. Heavy silence. Ashley folded her arms tightly. With respect, Linda, Ethan isn't innocent. Ethan laughed once under his breath. There it was. The pivot. Whenever accountability approached, Ashley redirected. Linda noticed too. Who said he was? Ashley blinked. He's emotionally unavailable. He shuts down, he avoids conflict. He survives quietly, Linda interrupted. Ashley stopped speaking. Linda continued gently but firmly. Men like Ethan become silent when they stop believing their pain matters to anyone. Ashley stared at her. Ethan felt exposed in a way he wasn't prepared for. Because his mother had just described his entire emotional existence in one sentence. Ashley looked toward Ethan desperately. Are you seriously just going to stand there while your mother attacks me? Attack. Interesting word. Linda smiled sadly. Oh, honey, if honesty feels like attack, you should ask yourself why. Ashley's eyes filled instantly. And for a moment, Ethan almost folded. Almost comforted her. Habit. 10 years of conditioning. But then he remembered the balcony. My body isn't your resource anymore. The coldness in her voice. The contempt. And suddenly, his sympathy stopped moving. Ashley wiped beneath her eyes angrily. I knew this would happen. What would happen? Ethan asked quietly. You making me the villain. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. You're texting another man. Ashley's face changed instantly. Linda looked sharply between them. What? It's not what you think, Ashley snapped. Then explain it. Ashley hesitated. Too long. That hesitation said everything. Ethan felt his chest hollow out further. What's his name? Ashley looked cornered now. A coworker. That's not a name. Daniel. There it was. A real person. Not paranoia. Not insecurity. Not imagination. Daniel. Ethan nodded slowly, while something inside him quietly died. Ashley rushed forward emotionally. It never became physical. Interesting wording. Not nothing happened. Not I don't have feelings for him. Only technical innocence. Ethan noticed immediately. So you considered it? No. You emotionally replaced me with another man. You pushed me away first. There it is again, Ethan whispered. Everything somehow becomes my fault. Ashley's composure cracked. Because I was drowning Ethan. So was I. His voice exploded louder than intended. The heart monitor beeped faster beside Linda. Both of them froze immediately. Ethan stepped back, breathing hard. I'm sorry, he whispered to his mother. Linda waved him off gently. But her eyes looked deeply sad now. Ashley lowered her voice. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Ethan looked at her carefully. Yes, you did. No. Yes. Rain batted the windows harder. You just didn't expect consequences. Ashley looked devastated by that sentence because somewhere deep down she knew it was true. She had wanted emotional escape without destruction, attention without collapse, validation without accountability. But human hearts don't work like that. Ethan moved toward the window, trying to steady himself. The city lights shimmered through rain like blurred memories. Ashley's voice became smaller behind him. I was lonely too. That one hurt because he believed her. And somehow that made everything worse. Ethan turned slowly. Do you know the difference between us? Ashley said nothing. I stayed lonely. Silence swallowed the room whole. Ashley finally broke completely. Tears streamed down her face. I didn't sleep with him. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. The fact she clarified that specifically destroyed whatever hope remained. Because faithful people don't usually negotiate technicalities. Linda watched them both with exhausted sorrow. Then quietly she said, You two stopped being partners and became opposing lawyers years ago. Nobody argued. Because it was true. Every conversation had become evidence collection. Scorekeeping. Defense strategies. Nobody felt safe anymore. Ashley wiped her face, trembling. I don't want a divorce. Ethan looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time, he asked himself a terrifying question. If she begged hard enough, would he still stay? That answer scared him. Because part of him still would. Not from love alone. From fear. Fear of starting over at 30 yet. Fear of loneliness. Fear of admitting 10 years became rubble. Ashley stepped closer. We can fix this. Ethan whispered something before he could stop himself. Why now? Ashley froze. He continued quietly. Why is losing me suddenly scary? Her lips parted. No answer came. Because she knew. Until tonight, Ethan had always absorbed the damage. Always stayed. Always forgiven. Always bent first. And now the possibility of him actually leaving terrified her more than the possibility of hurting him ever had. That realization changed something fundamental inside Ethan. Ashley stepped closer carefully. Please come home tonight. Home. Strange word now. Ethan looked toward his mother. Linda met his eyes steadily. No pressure. No manipulation. Just love. And somehow that gave him strength. He turned back toward Ashley. I don't know where home is anymore. Ashley cried harder at that. But Ethan felt weirdly calm now. Not healed. Not strong. Just awake. A doctor entered moments later, carrying a tablet. Sorry to interrupt. Perfect timing. The doctor smiled politely at Linda before reviewing charts. Your tests look stable. We'll keep you overnight for monitoring, but no major cardiac damage. Ethan exhaled in relief, so hard his knees almost weakened. Thank God. Linda squeezed his hand. Ashley stepped back quietly while the doctor continued speaking. Medication adjustments. Diet changes. Stress management. Eventually, the doctor left again. Linda looked exhausted now. You both need sleep. Neither moved. Linda sighed softly. Ethan. Yeah. Walk Ashley downstairs. Ethan hesitated. Mom. That wasn't a request. Even now she used mom voice flawlessly. Ashley looked nervous. Ethan reluctantly nodded. They walked through quiet hospital hallways side by side without touching. The fluorescent lights made everything feel colder. By the time they reached the elevator, Ashley finally spoke. I'm sorry. Ethan stared at the closing elevator doors. For what specifically? Ashley looked wounded by the question. But he needed specifics now. Not vague emotional apologies. Ashley swallowed hard. For making you feel unloved. That landed, because it sounded honest. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. Neither stepped out immediately. Ashley looked up at him carefully. I did love you, Ethan. Did. Past tense. He noticed. So did she. Tears filled her eyes again instantly. Oh God. Ethan looked away. There it was. The final truth accidentally escaping. Ashley covered her mouth, shaking. I didn't mean. But you did. The doors started closing again before Ashley hurried out into the lobby. Ethan followed slowly. The rain had finally weakened outside. Ashley stood near the entrance, clutching his coat around herself. Small. Fragile. Human. For years, Ethan had viewed her as emotionally untouchable. Now she just looked scared. I don't know how we got here, she whispered. Ethan answered honestly. We stopped choosing each other. Ashley cried silently. I hate that you think I'm a monster. I don't think you're a monster. Then what am I? Ethan took a long breath. A person who kept taking love for granted because she thought it would always stay. Ashley looked shattered. Cars passed outside, reflecting silver light across the lobby floor. Finally, she whispered, Are you seeing someone? The question stunned him. No. Ashley nodded slowly. I think part of me wanted you to. Why? So I wouldn't feel like the only bad guy. That honesty almost made him smile sadly. At least someone was finally telling the truth. Ethan looked toward the hospital entrance doors. I should go back upstairs. Ashley nodded but didn't move. Then quietly, Do you really think we're over? Ethan stared at her for a long moment. And deep inside himself, beneath anger and grief and betrayal, he found the real answer. I think we stopped being husband and wife long before either of us admitted it. Ashley broke again. But Ethan couldn't save her from this pain. Not anymore. Because for the first time in 10 years, he finally understood something devastating. Love cannot survive where respect quietly dies. = Part 3. 3 weeks later, Ethan stood alone in the kitchen at 6:30 in the morning staring at divorce papers beside a half-empty cup of cold coffee. The house was silent. Not peaceful. Haunted. Funny how a home could still contain someone's ghost while they were technically alive. Ashley had moved into a downtown apartment near her office 8 days earlier. Most of her clothes were gone. Her makeup products disappeared from the bathroom counters. Her perfume no longer floated through hallways. But traces remained everywhere. The yellow mug she always used. A missing picture frame outline on the wall. One strand of dark hair tangled in the bathroom drawer. 10 years reduced to artifacts. Ethan signed another document slowly. The sound of pen against paper felt heavier than it should. Irreconcilable differences. What a sterile phrase for emotional collapse. His phone buzzed. Mom. Ethan answered immediately. Morning. Linda's voice sounded stronger now. Did you sleep? Sort of. You sound terrible. Thanks. That's what mothers are for. A tiny smile crossed Ethan's face despite himself. Linda had recovered well physically, but emotionally, she watched her son like someone observing a building after an earthquake, waiting to see if it collapsed completely. You eating properly? She asked. Yes. That pause says no. I had toast yesterday. Ethan. I'm fine. Linda sighed softly through the phone. No, you're surviving. That word again. Surviving. He was getting tired of realizing how little living he'd actually been doing. Linda spoke carefully. You know what I think? Dangerous question. I think this marriage started ending the moment you began believing love had to be earned through suffering. Ethan leaned against the counter quietly. Rain tapped softly against kitchen windows. Chicago looked gray again. Everything had looked gray lately. I keep replaying things, he admitted. That's normal. No, I mean every conversation, every fight, every warning sign. And I ignored all of them. Linda stayed quiet. Ethan rubbed his forehead tiredly. She stopped respecting me years ago. That happened slowly sometimes. I kept shrinking myself to keep peace. His mother answered softly. Yes, you did. The truth hurt because it was undeniable now. Ethan had spent years apologizing for needs he wasn't allowed to have. Attention, affection, warmth, basic emotional safety. Eventually, he became so terrified of conflict that silence became his entire personality. And Ashley slowly learned she could wound him without consequences. Not because she was evil, because he taught her he'd endure it. A knock sounded at the front door. Ethan frowned. Nobody should be here. Linda's voice sharpened slightly. Who is it? No idea. Be careful. Ethan hung up and walked toward the door slowly. When he opened it, Ashley stood there holding a cardboard box against her chest. The sight of her still hit him physically. That bothered him. She wore jeans, no makeup, oversized sweater, simpler than usual. Human again. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Then Ashley lifted the box slightly. Your stuff. Ethan looked down. Inside sat old photo albums, books, a watch, random office items. Pieces of himself she found at the apartment. Thanks. Ashley nodded awkwardly. I didn't know if you wanted me to leave it outside. You can come in. She hesitated, then stepped inside slowly. The house immediately felt strange with her in it again. Like reopening a wound. Ashley looked around carefully. Different. Emptier. Sadness crossed her face. You moved the dining table. Sold it. Why? Ethan shrugged. Too many memories attached. That visibly hurt her. Good. Maybe she should feel what destruction actually costs. Ashley stood awkwardly near the kitchen island while Ethan set the box down. Silence stretched painfully. Finally, she whispered. You lost weight. So did you. More silence. Ashley looked exhausted. Not polished corporate Ashley. Not defensive Ashley. Just tired. I met with the lawyer yesterday, she said quietly. Ethan nodded once. Okay. I kept waiting for you to fight me. The sentence irritated him immediately. Fight you how? I don't know, scream, beg, something. Ethan laughed bitterly. You already took everything out of me before leaving. Ashley flinched. Deserved. She looked down at her hands. I never wanted to destroy you. Ethan stared at her carefully. That's the problem, Ashley. She looked up slowly. You didn't even realize you were doing it. Tears gathered in her eyes immediately. Ethan continued quietly. You thought because I stayed silent, I wasn't bleeding. Ashley wiped beneath her eyes. I know I hurt you. No, Ethan whispered. You abandoned me emotionally while standing beside me physically. That's worse. The kitchen fell silent again. Outside, distant thunder rolled across the city. Ashley took a shaky breath. Daniel and I stopped talking. Ethan felt nothing hearing the name now. That surprised him. Oh. He wanted a relationship. And Ashley looked around the empty house slowly. I realized I was chasing validation because I hated myself. That honesty landed differently. Real. Ugly. Human. Ethan leaned back against the counter. You know what's terrifying? What? I believed your disappointment defined my value. Ashley closed her eyes briefly. Ethan. No, really, think about that. His voice remained calm now, almost detached. I genuinely thought if I could become successful enough, attractive enough, useful enough, you'd finally look at me with love again. Ashley started crying quietly. But the truth is, Ethan continued, you stopped seeing me long before that. Ashley covered her mouth. You weren't enough for yourself either. That hit her hard. Because it was true. Ashley had spent years chasing achievement, perfection, external validation. Promotion after promotion. Approval after approval. Nothing filled the hole. So eventually, she blamed the marriage. Then Ethan. Then herself. Everyone became collateral damage for emptiness she never addressed. Ashley whispered through tears, "I don't recognize myself anymore." Ethan looked at her sadly. "I know." For the first time since separation, neither of them seemed interested in winning. Only understanding. And maybe that was the cruelest part. Clarity arriving after destruction. Ashley slowly sat at the kitchen table. The same table where they once planned baby names. The same table where they later stopped talking entirely. She looked impossibly small now. "Do you remember Denver?" she asked suddenly. Ethan blinked. "What?" "Our first trip together." A memory surfaced instantly. Snowstorm. Cheap motel. 24 years old. Ashley stealing hotel shampoo because they were broke. They laughed for hours that night under blankets, eating vending machine snacks. Back when struggle still felt romantic instead of exhausting. Ethan smiled despite himself. "You cried trying to ski." Ashley laughed softly through tears. "I was terrible. You crashed into a fence. You promised never to mention that again." "I lied." For one dangerous second, warmth returned between them. Familiarity. History. Love's ghost. Ashley looked at him carefully. "We used to be happy." Ethan nodded slowly. "Yes." "What happened to us?" He thought about that honestly. Not the easy answer. The real one. "We stopped protecting each other." Ashley stared at him silently. Ethan continued softly. "You started using my love as emotional leverage, and I started disappearing instead of confronting it." Tears rolled down her face again. "We became cruel." "Yes." The word hung heavily between them. Because cruelty in marriage rarely begins loudly. It starts quietly, with withheld affection, dismissive tones, tiny humiliations, neglect disguised as stress, until eventually two people stop feeling emotionally safe together. Ashley whispered, "I did love you." "I know." "No, I mean really." Ethan looked at her. "And I loved you enough to lose myself trying to keep you." That sentence broke something inside her completely. Ashley cried openly now. "I'm sorry." And this time, he believed her. Not because it erased damage. Because it sounded free of self-defense. True remorse finally arrived once there was nothing left to save. Ethan sat across from her slowly. "You know what hurt most?" Ashley shook her head weakly. "The way you looked at me near the end." She stared downward immediately. "Like I was disappointing you just by existing." Ashley sobbed quietly. "I hated myself during those years." "I know." "I projected it onto you." "I know." "And when Daniel started giving me attention." Ethan raised a hand gently. "Don't." Ashley stopped. He exhaled slowly. "I don't need every detail." Silence settled again. Then Ashley looked at him with red, exhausted eyes. "Do you hate me?" Ethan thought carefully before answering. "No." Ashley looked surprised. "I tried to," he admitted, "but honestly, I think we were both drowning differently." Tears slid down her cheeks. "You deserved better than me." Ethan shook his head slowly. "No, I deserved a healthier version of us." That sentence shattered her in an entirely different way. Because suddenly, the marriage wasn't a villain story anymore. It was tragedy. Two damaged people slowly starving each other emotionally, while pretending commitment alone could save them. Ashley wiped her face carefully. "The lawyer said the house will probably sell quickly." Ethan nodded. "Yeah. And after that, I don't know." It was the truth. For the first time in years, his future looked completely blank. Terrifying, but strangely open. Ashley stood slowly. "I should go." Ethan walked her toward the door. Each step felt surreal. 10 years ending quietly on a Thursday morning. No dramatic music. No screaming. Just grief. Ashley paused near the entrance. "I need to ask something." "Okay." "Was there ever a moment you stopped loving me?" Ethan looked at her for a very long time. Then answered honestly. No. Ashley broke down completely. Because sometimes the cruelest thing isn't losing love. It's realizing someone loved you consistently while you slowly destroyed their ability to feel safe beside you. Ashley cried openly in the doorway. I don't know how to live with that. Ethan's eyes burned too now. You learn from it. She shook uncontrollably. I ruined us. No, Ethan whispered, we ruined us. Ashley looked at him one final time. And in that moment, Ethan saw everything at once. The 24-year-old girl who danced barefoot in their first apartment. The grieving woman after miscarriages. The exhausted professional losing herself. The lonely wife seeking validation elsewhere. The human being beneath all the damage. He loved all versions of her. That was the tragedy. Ashley whispered something barely audible. What if you were the love of my life? Ethan's chest tightened painfully. Then he answered with devastating calm. Sometimes people meet the love of their life before they learn how to love properly. Ashley cried harder. But neither moved closer. Because some distances become sacred once crossed. Finally, she stepped outside. Rain had started again lightly. Ashley turned back one last time. Goodbye, Ethan. And for the first time in 10 years. He didn't chase her. Goodbye, Ashley. The door closed softly. And just like that, it was over. Ethan stood motionless in the silent house for several minutes. No yelling. No collapse. Just silence. Real silence. Then his phone buzzed. A text from his mother. Linda, you okay? Ethan looked around the empty kitchen slowly. The old version of himself would have answered automatically. I'm fine. But something had changed. Finally, Ethan typed, no, but I think I will be. 3 months later. Autumn covered Chicago in gold and amber. Ethan stood beside Lake Michigan, holding a paper coffee cup, while cold wind rolled off the water. He looked different now. Lighter somehow. Still healing. Still lonely sometimes. But present again. Therapy helped. God's therapy helped. So did boundaries. So did learning that masculinity wasn't emotional self-erasure. His engineering firm promoted him recently. Funny what happened when survival mode ended. He visited his mother every Sunday now. Started sleeping properly. Started laughing again occasionally. Started becoming someone he recognized. Not perfect. Real. His phone buzzed softly. Unknown number. Ethan answered. Hello. A familiar voice replied quietly. Hey. Ashley. Ethan stared across the water silently. Hi. She sounded nervous. I just wanted to tell you something. Okay. A long pause. Then, I'm finally starting therapy too. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Good. Really good. Ashley continued softly. I think, for the first time in my life, I'm actually being honest with myself. He smiled sadly. That matters. Another pause. Then Ashley whispered. You were right. About what? That my body wasn't the issue. Ethan stayed quiet. Ashley's voice cracked slightly. My heart was. Wind moved across the lake between skyscrapers. Ethan looked toward the horizon, where sunlight broke through clouds. And suddenly, he realized something important. Their story wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about betrayal. Not really. It was about what happens when two wounded people use love to avoid healing themselves. Eventually, the weight crushes everything. Ashley spoke one final time. I hope someone loves you the way you always deserved. Ethan's eyes burned unexpectedly. Then he answered softly. I hope you learn to love yourself enough not to destroy it when they do. Silence. Beautiful silence this time. Not hostile. Not empty. Peaceful. Ashley whispered goodbye. The call ended. Ethan lowered the phone slowly. Then he looked out across the water and breathed deeply. For years, he believed strength meant enduring pain quietly. Now he understood something different. Real strength is refusing to abandon yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. The wind carried leaves across the shoreline. Somewhere behind him, the city kept moving. Cars honked. People laughed. Life continued. And for the first time in a very long time, Ethan finally walked forward with it.